What's up everyone? Kevin from Epic Gardening here, and today, sitting in front of me, sitting in front of you, are two dragon fruit plants. So we picked these up from a fellow gardener who just has this epic dragon fruit farm, and he gave us some cuttings. And I believe there's three different types. You've got the red skin with the white fruit, you've got the red skin with the red fruit, and you have the yellow skin with the white fruit. According to this grower, we have the red skin with the white fruit, which is the most common type. It's the one you're probably gonna see in the grocery store. And let me be honest with you guys, these things are really expensive in the grocery store. One dragon fruit can be something like $5 to $8, depending on where you're buying it. So I figured, you know what, why not try to grow these myself? We got 4 of them, but I gave my friend 2, and we're gonna have the battle of the dragons. I'm growing them my way, he's growing them his way. I'll show you how he's growing them in a second, but first I need to explain how I'm gonna grow them. And we're gonna follow, this video is basically gonna be from now, today, October 15th, 2018, until whenever I get my first fruit, which who knows how long that's gonna be. So, what do I know about the dragon fruit? Well, to be honest, I didn't know that much until I went deep into the research, right? And so I was looking at, obviously you start with Wikipedia, then you go everywhere else. And I found some cultivators of dragon fruit that really gave me some really good tips. So here is what I learned. As far as soil and containers go, I went big. So I don't know what my friend is doing, but I went with a very large 20-gallon container with some drainage holes at the bottom, and I'll explain why in a second, but let's talk about soil. You would think, it being a cactus, it would need cactus mix. Not quite. It does really like a really nutrient-rich soil that happens to be well draining. So what I'm probably gonna do is I have some vegetable mix that we picked up from the local nursery, and I'm gonna probably mix in maybe a third of cactus mix in that to make sure that the moisture, all the water actually does drain out, but that there's a good amount of nutrition in the soil. So that's what I'm doing as far as my container, as far as my soil. Light-wise, you would think, again, being a cactus, that it would love absolute blasting sun as much as it can possibly get. Not quite. It does like a little bit of shade cover. If you're gonna grow it in maybe a desert region, then you're gonna have a rough time just putting it directly into the sun. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna locate it in a place, at least in my climate, I'm here in 10B, but it's certainly not a true desert out here. And so I think, especially as we're going into the winter season right now, I'm gonna just place it in a container in my front yard, and it's gonna get mostly full sun. I think it'll be okay, but maybe once it gets towards the summer, I'm gonna move it into an area that might just get a little break during the heat of the day, but that's only for the summer, so that's quite a ways away. Temperature-wise, it's gonna want pretty much mild to moderate temperatures. It can survive a light frost, but it certainly is not gonna like it, and it can survive up to and above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, but it's also not gonna like that too much. So I think where I am in zone 10B, that's gonna be a nice sweet spot of that nice Mediterranean climate, 70, 80 degrees, 85 degrees at most, and then probably the coldest it'll ever get here is probably 55 degrees, 50 degrees. So perfectly fine on temperature. Now, when it comes to fertilization, I read a lot of conflicting reports. So one theory was that being that it's an epiphytic plant, that maybe a lot of the roosting birds in the trees were one of its main sources of fertility besides that organic leaf litter that sort of collects in the nooks and crannies of the tree. It turns out maybe this is true, maybe it's not, I don't really know, but it turns out that as your plant is going into a blossoming phase, you're gonna wanna give it a 1-1-2 high in that potassium, because that's what it's gonna need during that budding phase. But if it's in the grow phase, you're gonna go 2-1-1 high nitrogen to put out a lot of that vegetative growth. So that seems pretty standard, and keep in mind, all those numbers are quite low, and so it's not gonna require a whole lot provided you have some well-draining soil at the start. So in researching how to best grow this plant and how to beat my friend in the battle of the dragons, we're competing, like I said, I looked at how people grow it commercially, because that's gonna be one big clue as to the most efficient way to grow a plant at scale. So in Southeast Asia, where this is heavily cultivated, you'll see a lot of, well, they do it in ground, so I'm not gonna do in ground, but you'll see a lot of middle pole where they grow many cuttings at once, and it goes up the pole and then it kind of spills out over, kind of like a floppy hairdo. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my 2 plants, this one's a bit longer than the other, as you can see I'm sort of supporting the weight of this one right here. but that's fine. They can take a little bit of bending, a little bit of abuse. I'm gonna plant them in this with the mix that I talked about before, and then I'm gonna put a rod down the middle. So I'm gonna put something, what I learned is they don't really like to climb up certain surfaces, so like very smooth surfaces or even a sort of a chemically treated wood, they're not gonna like to climb up that. So I might get an old broomstick, I might get like a metal pole, but this is deep enough that I can just shove that in the soil, and then I can use some wraps or some cloth or whatever to tie it up as it grows up. So that's what we're gonna do right now. We're gonna fill this up, we're gonna transplant in, and then later on, as the video progresses, we're gonna see exactly how it's growing. So I've got my cactus mix right here, and I have a pre-mixed vegetable mix that's got perlite, compost, some peat moss, some other good stuff in there. And I'm just gonna dump all of this in and then fill with this and mix it in as I go. So we've got our mix. Like I said, it's about 1/3 cactus mix, 2/3 veggie style mix, like a nice compost, peat moss, perlite. You can see pretty loose, pretty well draining, hopefully. And we're gonna go ahead and transplant it in now. Let's take a look at the root systems as we pull these out here. And when you do this, I like to kind of squeeze the edges first and then turn it upside down, let gravity do the work instead of pulling. That way you can get some of the roots that have gone through the drainage holes to slide out evenly. Roots look okay. These are obviously a little dried and dead, but that's okay. We're gonna break that up a little bit. And we can see it looks like this, there might be a bit more sand in the mix that I was given than the mix that I have here, but that's okay. And what I'm gonna do is lay these out and figure out how to place these, because remember, we're gonna want a pole of some sorts coming up through here, which I do not have right now, so I gotta transplant with that in mind. So let's take this other one, which is the longer one, and also kind of a misshapen one. Let's see if we can make this one work though. I think normally what people will do is they'll plant many more than just 2, but I only have 2, so that's what we're gonna plant. Let's take a look at these roots. This is much more root bound, obviously, because it's a more established, bigger plant. So I'm gonna break up these bottom roots just a little bit, just so the roots know that they're in a new place and they can go somewhere else, because if they'll keep growing in the pattern that they're stuck in if you don't do that. I believe Laura from Garden Answer, I think she calls it root memory. I'm not sure if there's a botanical name or term for that, but it sure seems to work for me. So I'm gonna break up some of these roots, and we're gonna go in and transplant into the system. So what I'll do here is I'm gonna do the smaller one first. I'm gonna do this one facing this way and this one facing this way, and then I'll use cloth to gently pull them back towards the middle rather than planting them this way where they kind of crisscross. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense. So let's go ahead and dig this part out. Nice, well-draining mix. We'll get it in there. And I'm really excited, guys. I mean, I think a lot of people don't really like the flavor of dragon fruit. I personally love it. They think it's too bland. I don't know, to me it's like a mild kiwi, which I think is a fantastic flavor, so I'm excited to grow that. Alright, so I've broken up these roots a little bit. We're going to plant this one here, maybe just slightly deeper. It's pretty hardy, like it can take a little abuse as far as planting goes, I've noticed. Okay, so that one's in, just right offset from the center. And then this one's going to go in to the other side of it. Let's go over here. Might need to go just a bit deeper. There we go. Bury that root ball on both of them. And there we have it, everyone. One thing I am going to do is add just a little support for now on this one, so it doesn't bend over its own weight. We'll do that for now until we get the pole in the middle to support it. But let's go ahead and water this in. So I've got what I think is a pretty cool spot for this dragon fruit, at least for now. This is my front yard garden, and the sun comes across throughout the day just like this. Never does it ever shade this part of the day out
or this part of the balcony out unless it's actually dark. So I think we're in a good spot. And look at this. We have a little bit of protection and support for this longer one as it's growing until I get my little wooden stake and start tying up. And so that's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and figure out what my roommate and friend. Now let's see what my friend has been doing with his dragon fruit. Let's take a look at the soil. It looks like he's gone a bit more, I see some sand in there, so it looks like he's gone a bit more cactusy mix than I have. Certainly has them in smaller pots right now, and he's growing them separately. So an interesting decision. We'll see how it works. Like I said, it's not like a life or death competition, but it's gonna be interesting to see what happens.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed episode 1 of the Battle of the Dragons. Let me know who you think's gonna do better. If you have any tips on growing dragon fruit, like I said, I haven't grown it before. This is all based on just research off the internet and sharing it with you guys. So let me know if you have any tips. If you think my system's kind of messed up, you think I'm doing something dumb, let me know in the comments. I'm always learning, just like everyone else. So thank you for watching. Stay tuned, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace out.